needs to be finessed. Don't worry, gentlemen, you'll get a chance to finesse the figure if you think I've got it a little bit wrong. The ballot question seeks to authorize Cape Cod Tech to borrow for construction of a new facility. The vote is Tuesday, October 24th, noon to 8 p.m. There are 12 costs, $128 million. Now, the tax impact on the 12 Cape towns is $86 million because the state is contributing. Now, there was a story in the news the other day, Friday, that is a little misleading. And the story indicates that the state is going to be contributing its increase by $5.3 million, and that would be to us Cape Codders, the local tax impact. And that would bring it down from $86 million to $81 million. You with me so far? It's an important figure. And I congratulate Sarah Peak, state rep from P-Town, and a friend of mine, our state senator on the Cape and Islands, Julian Sear. Good people trying real hard. But you should not go into this vote next Tuesday, everybody, thinking you've got the 5.3. Why am I saying that? It's in a state of flux because of politics. It has to go into a committee, joint conference. They haven't even selected the members for this committee yet. It then has to go to the governor, and the governor has in this state line item veto. I spoke to Senator Sear's office today and yesterday. Senator Sear's office says nothing can happen to the 5.3 until it gets to the governor's office, but they admit he could veto it. I spoke to the governor's office today. They have a little different story. And their story is it might not even get to the governor. I don't know what's up with that. I'm just telling you what the communications director for Governor Baker told me today. She also indicated, yes, the governor has line item veto in this. I say this not to be a pain in the neck to my four panel. I'm just pointing out that I think we need to be honest with ourselves about what we're going into next Tuesday about that 5.3 million. If this thing passes, be hopeful that we get the 5.3 million. I wouldn't go in voting thinking we have it yet. It's not quite a done deal. Total cost of the project, when you factor in the interest on taking out a 30-year note or a 30-year bond, as the municipalities like to say, I have two figures for you. 168 million or 210 million. I'm going to let the boys up here on the panel, I'm going to let them chew away at that in a little bit. One of those figures, the 210, includes the state's contribution, the 168 doesn't. And depending on whom you're talking to, you get those two figures. One last thing, I'll shush and I'll go to the panel. The vote on this Tuesday, October 24th, noon to 8 p.m. It's very interesting what's going on. I've never quite seen anything like this. The law, this isn't the school, this is the law in the state of Massachusetts. It's a majority vote of all 12 district towns. So what does that mean? It means that if you get a majority of yeses and the noes lose, but let's say 3 Cape Cod towns, they all voted no, doesn't matter. It's the majority of the total. That's how this thing works. We'll see how that works out, and there's nothing from a legal point of view any of those towns can do. If this passes, even if 8 of the Cape towns said no to this, doesn't matter. They're in this deal, and I'm talking financially. They're in this deal, and that's the way that it is. Okay, that's my little spiel. If for the listening audience on WXTK, Kevin Matthews is producing for me this evening, and if you email questions now at news@95wxtk.com, news@95wxtk.com with a question, I'll try to pass that along to my panelists. Please keep it short. As I had said, what everyone has agreed to here is all 6 of the fellows up here will make an opening statement. If it's okay, opening comment for about a minute. I'll start with the 4 panel and we'll just work all the way down. Robert Sanborn, sir.
First of all, thanks, Pat, for setting this up. We're looking forward to having a discussion on the merits of our project.
Stay nice and close to that mic.
Centered around the costs, the demographics, the programming, workforce demands, and renovation versus new discussion. I'd like to compliment the no side, Mr. Gottlieb from Mashpee, Mr. Upson from Chatham, Mr. McDowell from Dennis. I I really respect their opinions. Don't agree with them, but do respect their opinions, and I do respect the work that they do in working for their community. However, after a 5-year process of seeking a partnership with the MSBA, informing the towns that this was coming, and presenting the information on 3 separate occasions, the municipal entities have been most informed about this product, have overwhelmingly endorsed it. Why is that? Why is it that unanimous school building committee voted for the new facility to the east side of the current facility? Why is it that the school committee voted 16-1 in favor of this project? Why is it that the MSBA voted unanimously, the board? Why did 10 select boards vote and to endorse this project? And 4 out of 5 finance committees that have voted in favor of this project. Ultimately, it is up to the voters on October 24th, because it is in our regional agreement that we would vote in the way that you discussed earlier, Pat, subject to Chapter 7116N, which was started in the 1970s. It's how our district was formed. And it is from 12 to 8 to decide for the district from Provincetown to Mashpee the future of their vocational technical high school, Cape Cod Tech.
Good job, Robert Sanborn. Opening comment from Charlie Sumner. Charlie. And Charlie, I apologize for I know I'm being a pest. As close as you can get to that microphone, it'll sound better. Don't be shy, you can bring that thing right up to you.
Thank you very much, Pat. So I served as the Brewstertown administrator for almost 30 years. And I retired 2 years ago, and since then I've been a volunteer at the Cape Cod Tech on an advisory committee and, of course, on the building committee. And I can look back over my 30 years of service as a town administrator in Brewster, and I know the Cape Cod Tech is a good partner, a responsible partner. They have the communications and the information that they've provided to all of the municipalities leading up to this project has been going on for over 5 years. They have annual meetings where they invite all the members of the finance committees, town administrators, selectmen, finance officials to the school to talk about the project. Now, by the time this project is completed, that current building is going to be over almost 50 years old. It was designed during the Vietnam War. It's worn out. Its basic building systems are old and degraded. And when you do renovations, I know this conversation, let's save the old building, let's renovate it. I've done hundreds of millions of dollars worth of public and construction contracts over 37 years of service. And there's so many surprises. And in the end, you get a product with renovation that just isn't as functional and as efficient. Every time you open up a wall with renovations, you get a surprise, and surprises result in huge costs for renovations. And I think the other upon students, a new building has a significantly less impact upon student learning, and that's a critical factor, but it also has an impact on timing. This project is going to go a lot quicker with new construction versus renovation. And time is money in public construction costs.
And time is money for me, unfortunately, Charlie.
And I was just going to say,
wrap it up.
Thanks very much. So I just say denying this project now results in greater costs going forward. Please vote to support this important project for our local communities.
Good job, Charlie Sumner. All right, also on the 4 panel, advocating a yes vote on the 24th, Dennis Selectman Cleon Turner. Mr. Turner.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you to XTK for sponsoring this forum where voters can hear both sides of the story and make a rational decision, we hope. I'm hoping that decision will be yes. But I'd especially like to thank Representative Peake and Senator Sear for pushing so hard to hopefully get that extra money that will be very helpful in paying for this project, and the rest of our delegation, who I'm sure voted in favor of this project, or at least in favor of the money for the project. So we thank all of those folks. In my opinion, over a number of years now, and having been on boards of selectmen and in the legislature, It's my opinion that there is nothing more important for a community to make sure is done well and done thought that was just my timer. Then education. Education is just critically important. And as Charlie said, if we don't do this now, it is only going to get more expensive. And students who are in that school now, or in the school during the building project even, are going to miss that part of the education that this building will provide. And there's no way for them to get that back. So please vote yes on this particular project.
Good job, Cleon Turner. All right, let's go to the against panel, or advocating for a no vote on October 24th. Peter McDowell, who is a member of the Dennis Finance Committee. Peter.
Thank you very much for inviting me to participate here, and now we'll see what we can do about the sunshine on this particular project. How can any common sense, I have been wondering, be seen in spending more than $210 million to completely remove this 44-year-old brick building? Back in the late 1960s, I can recall being invited to participate in one of the establishing committees of this school. I know for the first 18 years, as the Dennistown moderator, I appointed the school committees to represent the town of Dennis in this facility. And why, I've been asked, why is the Cape Cod Tech School Committee now demonstrated it knows so little about the importance of maintenance of buildings? Maintenance of a long-life brick building like this school, which we originally believed would last more than 100 years. Especially when their primary goal is training young people, the many trades in the fields of maintenance and many other things. And our concern in the Dennis Finance Committee is not with the quality of the education. The kids, this is a top-draw school, and the education they're receiving could not be any finer, I don't believe, and we have not believed. Why do other educational buildings like Harvard University, the University of Maine, where my granddaughter attends, last more than 100 years? What about Dennis's Ezra H. Baker Brick School building, first opened in 1930, that was 43 years old when this Cape Cod Tech building was put into use? The Ezra Baker School now has been in use for 87 years and still is going very strong. Somehow it received a new roof, new insulated windows. Why can't the Cape Cod Technical School do the same thing without spending hundreds of millions of dollars?
And Peter, we got to wrap it up.
Maybe we can use better, very well, and I just simply would suggest to you that maybe our money should go into education, not school buildings, walls, floors, and ceilings.
All right, Peter McDowell, thank you, sir. Andrew Gottlieb, Mashpee Selectman, with an opening. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. You noted it was a strange election. I actually find it refreshing that whatever side gets the most votes actually is going to win this one. So that makes me feel better. I think you'll hear that much with the side that's for it, side that I'm on for this particular occasion, you know, we all think differently, we all see this issue differently. I don't think there's any one particular no view or a yes view. And I'd like to just start off by saying my concerns have nothing to do with my belief in the value of technical education and providing kids on the Cape with a wide range of educational opportunities that meet their needs, their learning styles, their professional aspirations, and the needs of the community. My concern is frankly less the building than it is the overall cost of education at the technical school. In my research, I found that the per pupil cost at Cape Tech is at the extreme high end of other technical schools statewide, substantially higher than that provided at Upper Cape Tech. And then when you add the cost of the debt service for the school, apportioned out equally among the communities based on our per student basis, that the overall cost of the educational experience and the debt service on the building is excessive. And I find that you'd never or rarely in public life do you get the perfect opportunity to raise certain questions, and perhaps this is not the ideal opportunity to raise that broader issue, but frankly, in my lifetime, this is, and I believe most of our lifetimes, this is going to be the one meaningful opportunity that the broader community has the opportunity to say something meaningful about what we can afford as a community for technical education expenses. And I've been hoping that we'd have the opportunity to have a broader discussion about a strategy to bring down the cost or slow the rate of increase of the cost of educating kids at tech.
All right, good job, Andrew Gottlieb. Okay, last person on the advocating for a no panel, Buck Upson. Buck.
Thanks a lot, Pat. Thank you, WXTK. Great subject. Happy to be here. I want to mention again, tonight I am speaking as a private citizen. From 2005 to 2012, I was proud to serve on the State Advisory Board to Vocational Education. During that time, the board visited approximately 24 vocational schools throughout the state. We drove on our own cars, rain or snow, from Haverhill, Essex, up to northeast corner. We never got to Cape Tech. We never got to Upper Cape, but we did get to the South Shore. During that time, we met with the administration, toured the shops, and had meetings talking about the challenges and problems of vocational education in the state. So as I sit here tonight, I want to make sure that it's clear that I have devoted a tremendous amount of time supporting vocational education in the state of Massachusetts. I hope tonight the subject does not dwell on the benefits of vocational education. The most amazing thing in my life is to see the magic that the teachers of the vocational schools in this state do with the kids that come there with hopes of learning a career in a skilled trade. I believe that tonight our objective is to make sure that you have all the facts before you go to the vote.
You've got to wrap it up, Buck. Thank you. Good job, all of you. All right, let's get into some questions for a few minutes, and then as I said, if you folks in the audience will at some point raise your hand and let me know you have a question, I am mobile and I will come over and put the microphone in front of you. You can ask any question you want. We're starting to get some emails in from the WXTK listening audience, and it's news@95WXTK.com. If you're just joining us, we are broadcasting live from the Cape and Islands Association of Realtors Conference Center, Mid-Tech Drive off of Higgins Quill Road in West Yarmouth. If you're in the area, you're more than welcome to swing on by, and we're discussing what is a pretty important question for Cape Cod, for 12 towns. If this passes, this is a long-term decision that you are making. I'm assuming most towns will do what Barnstable did, and you're talking about taking out a bond of 30 years out. So it's a lot of money. To try to get the conversation going with you fellas, I'm going to ask Bob Sanborn a question. The new proposed school, Bob, is designed for 650 students.
That's correct.
All right. You told me last night that in October of 2016, the student enrollment at Cape Tech was 623. And then when I asked you, what's the enrollment now, I got it out of you, and you said unofficially, right?
Because it is unofficial.
593.
That's correct.
If I'm doing my math correctly, you're down 30 students.
Correct.
All right. And the trajectory on Cape Cod, Bob, for young families, for young people, you know what direction it's going in. We all know what
Well, I don't know if that's settled law.
direction that it's going in. In my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's opinion, the Cape is getting older. We're losing our young people. But I won't debate that with you. Why, though, you acknowledge that your student enrollment is down, why build a new school for 650?
Well, I got to debate you because we've looked at two studies when we went into this project before we ever agreed upon a 650 student enrollment. If you look at our enrollment in 2006, about 686 students, and the last was 623, as you said, 593 right now. The 8th grade population is what we look at. That's what the MSBA looked at. We also did an independent study through NESDEC. These are two studies, because you're going to hear about another study at some point during this process, that had nothing to do with predicting school-age population. NESDEC is a professional organization that does not, one of the only things they do well is to predict school-age population, and the MSBA also predicts population. They came back with 624, I think I told you that at our meeting. However, we made the argument that a renovated or new facility, because at the time we didn't know whether it would be renovated or new, that would be a draw for students. When we brought the Cape and Islands delegation into the school and said, we need your help. You've spent $364 million, the MSBA, right around our school, and you've given us $128,000 for a boiler. Our Cape and Islands delegation made that happen, and we finally got in the program. So those students are coming from schools with state-of-the-art science labs, state-of-the-art classrooms, schools building envelopes that have been completely redone, or schools that have been completely redone. $364 million done around us, $128,000 for a boiler. It is Cape Cod Tech's time.
A response from the opposing panel, Buck Upson. I don't think they're applauding for you, Buck. I may be wrong about that.
I've never gotten an applause in my life. I believe the question was, why are you promoting a school for 650 when our enrollment's down to 593? The interesting thing about that is that on May 25th, the architect from DRA, Drummy Anderson, or Roseanne and Anderson, I asked the question specifically, what is the maximum safe capacity that you can enroll in this school? And the response from Carl, the architect from DRA, was 715 to 725. So we are not building a school for 650 kids. The current project is designed maximum capacity for 725 students. The school has not seen 725 students in the last 13 years. My records only go back to 2004. So I think that's a key point, the size of the school.
Before I go to you, Andrew, anyone on the floor table want to respond? Charlie? Charlie Sumner.
I have a letter.
Again, I apologize,
I have a letter
Charlie.
from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, dated September 18, 2015. And it's a lot of analysis and statistical data that went into the enrollment projection. But I will read this one sentence. As a result of the analysis on the district's historic enrollment patterns, application data, retention rates, current Chapter 74 program data, the MSBA believes a total enrollment of 650 students is appropriate for the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. So no matter what we say, the state is authorized a design for 650 students. We can talk all kinds of ways about these numbers, but that's the enrollment we're doing, not 700 and some number.
Andrew Gottlieb.
I would say that we can all wheel out studies that support increasing or decreasing enrollments. A couple of facts, though, just for people to know. Cape Cod is the oldest county in Massachusetts. We have the largest population, over 65, of any county in Massachusetts. That's today. And also, the median income of our year-round population is below the state average. So we are older and less wealthy as a community than the typical county in Massachusetts. And there's a number of factors that go into that. It's expensive to live here. It's hard to live here in certain respects. It's hard to get off the Cape for medical appointments and to commute back and forth to work. And those are current trends. And when you add in the cost of housing, there's some very severe headwinds that push against population growth on Cape Cod. And we've had this conversation in Mashpee. Every school entity, rightly so, believes in the quality of the education that they're providing kids, and I think also firmly believes that given the resources, whether it's the teaching resources, the recreational resources, the building attractions that they all want, that they can become the magnet. We cannot, and I've heard it in my town. We're going to be the exception because we're going to be the place that draws kids through school choice into our community. And that conversation, I would suspect, happens in almost every school district on Cape Cod. And we all can't be right. There's only so many kids to go around. And so, you know, Bob cited the studies he has. I've seen others that show, you know, declining young person, young family projections over the next decade or two. So it's just something to think about. You know, we're dealing with current situation that has driven young families off Cape. One of the counter arguments that I believe very strongly resonates quite well with me about the value of technical education is that, you know, you're providing alternative educational opportunities that, you know, are good for kids and allow them to work in the community and meet some of the needs. And that's true. That's what gets me back to the overall cost. You know, it's great, we all want certain things, but if we're priced out, the cost of providing that service exceeds what people who are here now can afford.
Do you believe, Selectman Gottlieb, that this school at 650 is too big?
I don't have a basis to, I think that's an aspirational number. Let's put it that way.
You think it's a what?
An aspirational number. I can understand they want to get to that. I don't know where those kids are going to come from. I can't say they're wrong.
I want to move on to another question, but I know, give two more of you a chance. Cleon Turner.
Yeah, I'll make it fairly quick. I belong on another committee dealing with school issues, and that's the Dennis Yarmouth School issues. We had a presentation from a statewide expert yesterday, just yesterday, indicating that though the enrollment in Dennis Yarmouth, which relates to the tech school as well, has been declining over a number of years, the decline has gotten smaller and smaller. So, for example, if we lost 30 students 5 years ago, we're down to single-digit student losses now. So it's changing. It is changing over time.
It sounds like former Representative Turner, you're telling me that you believe, as I do, that we're losing young people on the Cape. That's what I'm hearing you say.
We have been losing young people for a period of time, but we're losing them at a slower rate than we have before.
I know, but 10 years from now, if I may, the 650 capacity school that Bob wants to build, I'm just wondering, in order to save money, if we come in with a school that was smaller, would that not make sense?
Well, Bob doesn't want to build it, I want to build it. We all want to build it. Everybody on this side of the panel wants to build it. It does make sense, in the sense that, you know, when you take a few students out of a school, this is my argument with charter schools as an example. When you take a few students out of one school, it doesn't change the need for the building, the teachers, and so on. So the number of students that currently exist, in my opinion, from the information we have and what I learned yesterday about DY, is that it is likely not to go down much more. And when students do come back onto the Cape, or people have more kids here on the Cape.
We're going to move on to a new thing. One last point. I know, Bob, one last point, then we're going to move on to another question. Bob Upson, you've been patient in raising your hand.
One sentence. I have the letter that Charlie referred to, September 18th, 2015, from Mary Piketty, and the key word, MSBA believes a total enrollment. Now, where I went to school, total means the max time, not 725. The architect designed it to hold 725. He told us that in a public meeting. If he had said the maximum total was 650, I probably wouldn't be here today.
All I'm going
I feel I have to let Bob.
All I'm going to say about enrollment is this is a 40 to 50 year venture. During the time in the 90s, school age population ballooned. They had to build new schools on the Cape. Then the 2000s came and there was a big decline. Nobody is denying the big decline. The studies that have been done are looking at going forward from the time 2015. It's stagnant. School age population, the 8th grade population that will feed our school, is stagnant. We were 623 students last year. We're just under 600 today. I think a new facility, a state-of-the-art facility to provide the training. That another aspect of this is, are we dedicated to this trend of the young people leaving the Cape. We train kids in the jobs that allow them to stay here.
Thanks, Bob. We're broadcasting live tonight on News Radio 95 WXTK, and we're dealing with a very important vote that's coming up a week from today, October the 24th. The voting time is noon to 8 p.m. Barnstable, Yarmouth, Dennis, Brewster, Chatham, Eastham, Harwich, Mashpee, Orleans, Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet. Pay attention to what these gentlemen are saying. If for no other reason, it's a pocketbook issue, but as I think Bob was just trying to get at, the spirit of it's education as well, it's about our young people. All right, a question for any of or all of you on the advocating for a no vote on the 24th. The Cape Cod Technical School Building Committee, and I believe I have all three on my 4 panel, you all sat on that committee. They concluded, fellas, that renovation of the Voc-Tech school and new, which they're advocating, brand new, would virtually be the same price. If that's the case, and perhaps you don't believe it, but if that's the case, why not build a new school? And Peter, Andrew, Buck, one or all of you can respond to that.
I'd enjoy taking the first shot at that.
Peter McDonald.
First, I think, and I'd like to approach this question from this way. If the voters, and I'm not sure this is going to happen, because where we all totally respect the achievement of this educational quality of the student body going to this school is top drawer. There's no one, I believe, here feels any other way, including this side of the table. However, if the voters were to vote no to the new school building and also to vote no on the rehab, where would we be? I can suggest to you one thing that could occur is exactly what happened in the town of Dennis with the Ezra Baker School. We have, the building was 1 year shy of the same age the Cape Cod Regional Technical School is today when the Cape Cod Regional School opened brand new. It was 43 years old, being constructed in 1930, and is now 87 years old. It is still going. And the school committee and the superintendent of the Cape Cod Regional Technical School wants to completely discard that building. It's a brick building. It was chosen to be brick so we could get almost 100 years, or anticipate 100 years, like the buildings in Harvard, at so many of the universities, brick buildings. My own John Simpkins School, I graduated in 1956, they closed it in 1957 when the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School was built. That building is still there and in full use.
Peter, we wouldn't be
Mr.
having...
Chairman, and excuse me?
Sorry.
What I
Just
would
give
like
me
to
Harvard's endowment, we'll be all set.
Well, and Mr. Sanborn, I'm sure you'd be right there willing to spend it too. However, and I do respect Mr. Sanborn and his salesmanship in this project. However, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to share is the cost here is maintenance. Our young people are learning, the faculty and the administrators of the Cape Cod Regional Technical School are teaching young people how to do this. The Upper Cape Regional School has a building not terribly old, much older than this, not much different in age. They're not building any new school, they just put an addition on.
So Peter, you're wondering why, with what Voc-Tech does, I must admit I wondered the same thing, why can't the faculty and students be making a lot of these repairs? Is that what you're going with that?
Yeah, and a good question is why couldn't the student body be working on some of the materials? I've seen no engineering, and I've been in the construction business for years myself.
Let's get back to that, but we're losing our focus on the question that I asked. And I'd really like to know what Andrew and Buck think. Fellows, again, unless you dispute what these gentlemen are saying, that new versus renovation, it's virtually the same cost. My thought is, well, then why not build new then? Andrew Gottlieb, you have an opinion on that?
Not much of one, to be honest with you. I think that there's, in the abstract, it would be nice to be able to continue to maintain our buildings adequately so that they could be renovated or expanded in a way that doesn't approach the cost of new construction. But I understand the issues that they've raised. I have enormous respect for Charlie's municipal management perspective on how renovation and the like can sometimes lead you into places that you don't think you're going to go and raise costs. As I started with my opening comments, my issue is less, and I looked at the different scenarios. I figured it was 7 or 9 that Mr. Sanborn originally provided to us when we talked about it. And the range of between renovation alternatives and new were relatively tight in the original estimates, and they stayed relatively tight. And so given where the committee came to, I think their decision to move forward, given the options they had, was fairly logical. So that doesn't cause me an enormous amount of heartburn. What does, I'll get back to it, is the combined overall cost of paying the debt service and the per pupil cost just strikes me as excessive. And if we were dealing with the operating cost side, I wouldn't be talking about the new school.
Buck, you have any comment on if we, and I'm not hearing any of you challenge the building committee people here, if the costs are the same to build new or to renovate, why not build new?
So who did you want to?
You, Buck.
Thank you. So as Superintendent Sanborn will agree, I do my own research. I don't take anybody's advice on what the cost is to rehabilitate a school versus building new. I have found, serving on a number of boards and committees, that sometimes the lead salesman gives the information that you need to come to the conclusion that he wants. And I have found over and over the best way to make the best decision is to do your own research. So you're saying it's the same. I can't accept that until I validate that.
Fair enough. I suspected that the pro panel on this would like to rebuttal a little bit. Bob, I want to start with you, or Charlie? I don't care.
Listen, I just wanted to talk
Into that mic, Charlie.
A couple of comments that were made about the maintenance practices of the Cape Cod Tech. You know, the fact of the matter is, the Cape Cod Tech, I think, originally was opened in 1975. And I don't know, but frankly, there's been very little situations where the Tech has come back to the member towns for major capital investments. They've done this largely within their assessment, within their budget, using the resources of the student body to take care of that building. So they have done what they were just criticized for doing for almost 44 years. They've done a fabulous job. I think the problem we have here, now we also talked about Harvard, and it's a fair conversation to have, and we can renovate that building. But when Harvard renovates a building, what do? They move out of that building, and they put their student programming in some other location while they're doing that. Why do they do that? Because of the impacts on the educational student program during renovation projects. We do not have the liberty to move our programming out of these spaces. Even to do a renovation of that building, there's a lot of lost opportunity and lost cost. Millions and millions of dollars are for temporary systems, temporary classrooms, relocating opportunities, and still having a horrific impact upon our program. And the last thing I'd just like to say is that if you walk through that school building with the assistance of some of the staff that we have there, it is a flawed layout. It was originally designed as an open classroom plan, no walls. The schools have had to make modifications, adaptations to that building over time. It's really a dysfunctional layout, particularly when you talk about teaching for the next 50 years.
Cleon, did you want to respond?
Yeah, just quickly, to address Mr. McDowell's Harvard and University of Maine. Harvard's endowment, by the way, is $40 billion. When they need a new building, they simply build it. And when they grow out of a building, they don't tear it down, they renovate it by moving the students out, and they build a new building. So they've got plenty of money to do that.
Bob.
Yeah, just quickly, twice it was referred to, once by Mr. McDowell, once by Mr. Upson, about salesmanship. We have a team that put forth these options. We have drumming Roseanne and Anderson, as our architect, we have Colliers International as our owner's project manager, and we have a 25-member school building committee that analyzed these. These were not produced by one person. These were produced by experts and analyzed by experts. And they've come to the conclusion that a new facility to the east side of the current one is the proper one. And I haven't heard any counter argument to that, and I think we're done with this subject.
One of the things that got brought up a moment ago, Bob Sanborn, and I had wondered it myself when you and Aaron were giving me a tour of the school, you were regaling me with the story about the air conditioning right before graduation, going on the Fritz with you. And I don't know if Erin's here or not. There she is. Hi, how are you? I think the price tag you put on fixing the air conditioner, $87,000?
We spent $87,000 in the month of June just to get a functional air conditioner.
Just to fix your 87,000. And what I wonder, and I think some of the other fellows have alluded to it, was you're a vocational school, you teach heating and air conditioning, and I'm not trying to be a Weisenheimer about it, but couldn't you fix that thing yourself?
No.
There's air conditioning, and then there's air conditioning. Our students, we had to bring in experts. We're talking about a 300-ton chiller. You don't have students work on a 300-ton chiller. You don't have students working on what inch pipe, Lou? 12-inch pipe. You just don't. You don't have them going into breakers that have 480. You just don't.
Okay.
But the reason we haven't come back to the towns in 45 years is our staff and our students, and the reconfiguring of the spaces over 45 years from, as Charlie said, a flawed layout.
You're listening to News Radio 95 WXTK. Good evening. We're broadcasting live. I'm Pat Dismaris. For the XTK audience, you can email questions in, and they're coming in fast and furious. News at 95WXTK.com. We do have a live audience here at our broadcast location. I see some hands going up. I am going to go to you audience members to ask some questions in just a second. I promise you. A WXTK listener is asking, this is actually a good question, Bob, because this whole polling thing and voting thing is fascinating. Are all the usual polling precincts open in all the towns for this special vote?
Yes. We've been working in consultation with the town clerks from all 12 towns throughout this process. We've actually met 3 times, and yes, every precinct will be open. The peculiarity is the 12 to 8 because of that law, Chapter 7116N, that's in our regional agreement, which only allows the polls to be open for 8 hours. It can be a minimum of 4, but we agreed with the town clerks that the maximum was appropriate and made sense, and that's the reason for the 12 to 8, but all precincts will be open that day.
Another WXTK listener is asking, how about some renovations and an addition? The students can do at least some of this work. They do electrical work at my house, says this XTK listener. Not realistic, not reality. Buck Upson, let's switch to the other table. Buck Upson.
Thank you, Pat. So at the top of the meeting, when I did my 1-minute brief introduction, I mentioned I've been to 20 vocational schools throughout the state. 2 things that I observed. One was none of the vocational schools that were built in the 70s era, like Cape Tech, have been torn down and rebuilt. I think it was Cleon that said Harvard, they take all the kids out and go to another school or another location. The fact of the matter is, what they do is, they do the renovation with the kids in the school. Now, how that works, I can't speak to it, but I know some pretty fine vocational schools in the state, highly regarded as the top, have done it that way. One other thing, almost every single school that we went to, whether it's true or not, they told us how proud they were of the renovations and the projects the kids did themselves from their vocational shops. Like Upper Cape is doing their own high-back shop. It's been a tradition for the kids to be involved with building their own school.
Charlie.
Well, listen, we're not doing modest renovations and improvements to a building here. You can't take a student body that has made the educational curriculum as well as the vocational curriculum and ask them to do a $128 million renovation project. And I will say, as a town administrator in Brewster, I had the Cape Cod Tech do a number of improvement projects to our buildings. The thing about the Cape Cod Tech working on projects is they do great work. It's great to have the students involved, but timing is an issue. They have to meet their educational core curriculum, and for them to carry out a $120 million project is just totally unrealistic and inappropriate.
Bob Sanborn, last
Just
point.
to answer the caller's question or the emailer's question, the school building committee did look at two renovation addition options, but as I said earlier, the cost was either more or the same as new construction.
All right, fair enough. Doing a good job, I think. And I see hands going up. I have one last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to you folks, I promise. Bob Sanborn, if this vote fails on October 24th, will you ask us Cape Cod voters to vote again on this in the future?
Well, the first thing we would do is we would call the Mass School Building Authority. That would be the first thing we did. And that's to see if we still have a partnership. As I said, this is a 5-year journey. And the partnership with the MSBA was crucial because we knew this was going to be an expensive proposition. We would have to analyze the situation. We'd have to analyze the vote. We would have to talk with our experts, our architects, our owner's project manager, and the MSBA for a new path home.
Andrew Gottlieb would like to respond.
Obviously, you know, it's the district's decision on what the next move would be. I want to talk about it from a slightly different perspective. What happens in the individual towns if it passes? As you started in your introduction, only Barnstable has made a decision about how they're going to pay for it.
Harwich has it on their ballot.
Right, but the voters won't know at the time they vote what that's going to mean. So one thing just for people to be aware of is, assume it does pass, which is frankly my assumption at this point. The other 10 towns are going to then have their pro rata share of the debt service. And one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to absorb that cost from their existing municipal budgets, which for the most part I can tell you would result in almost every town having to take money from some other municipal service and reallocate it towards the debt service when that becomes due, and which won't be year one. Or we're going to be asked by your respective boards of selectmen to do what Barnstable did, which is to vote on a debt exclusion, which makes the increment an additional assessment on your property taxes. It's difficult for towns and for voters to look at this question in the abstract. And I'll use my town as an example. We have not defined for our residents yet what the impact of taking our share of the debt service out of our existing municipal operation would be. Haven't had that discussion. Our board decided it was premature to have that conversation until we knew that it was a reality. In all likelihood, if it does pass, my expectation is we will ask our voters to do a debt exclusion, basically to add to their taxes that increment and validate the decision if it is made to proceed going forward.
Selectman Gottlieb, I heard you say at a selectmen's meeting in Mashpee on September the 25th, and I quote you, you said, "I think you can say no, only if and unless you say no to this project because this costs too much, do you get an option put on the table that we can actually discuss."
My view and what has motivated my position on this is, as I said earlier, you know, the truth of the matter is that, and this is not anything that's necessarily a good thing, the reality is that the Cape Tech District, its school committee, do their work, and they work hard, without a lot of public attention. And, you know, the school committees, the boards of selectmen in respective towns don't get that much attention from our citizens on a regular meeting basis. The technical school committee gets less. So this is I barely view this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have a real meaningful conversation about what the cost of this operation is going to be for us in the short term and the long term. And I don't think that if this passes, I think that's the end of that conversation. So my view is that you know, a no vote would force everybody back to the table after having some broader education in the community and raise some awareness to talk about between the cost of renovation, addition, or replacement, plus the cost of educating the kids. How can we do that at an amount that's
I'm going to
affordable?
start speeding everyone up because we only have 30 minutes left. We've already blown through an hour. Peter,
Could I use some specific numbers relating to...
if you could just be concise.
Yarmouth.
Please.
The net difference today, and with using Cape Cod Tech numbers and the DY numbers, the money difference before we get into any constructions is a little more than $9,500 per student more to go to Cape Cod Tech. I'm very much in favor and sympathetic to that. However, using Cape Cod Tech numbers that were published to us, it will be $9,000 additional dollars. It's more than $9,000 additional dollars to pay for this construction per student every year, every day, for the cost per year. I'd like to share with you the cost after using the numbers on the assumption that when the design is done, it really only total cost is more than 210 million, not more than that because it could be. However, the additional cost just after the construction is using Cape Cod Tech numbers would increase another $9,000. It brings it to $18,500 additional dollars per student after the building's built using their numbers. I can tell you this, every single year from now on, the DY School Committee, not the DY School Committee, but the town of Dennis will be looking at the savings of every time or any initiative you can to keep the kids in the DY school system and not the Cape Cod Tech. That's going to be a battle, and no one can suggest that will not be an issue in any of the other towns of the 12 towns of the Cape Cod Regional Technical District.
Did I hear that right?
Something you want to say?
Did I hear that right? That Mr. McDowell is going to advocate for students to stay at DY and not avail themselves of vocational technical education?
No, you did not.
That's what I heard. Exactly what I heard.
What did you say?
It is the system, not Mr. McDowell, but it'll be the system. I believe you'll find, as in government, there are people that do like saving money as opposed to spending it.
Up real fast, Buck Upson.
Every month we hear at the school committee meeting, every month the fight on the Lower Cape to hold kids in the sending districts to save money. There has been all sorts of tricks done. One of the most famous ones is bringing the 8th graders into the high school so that they don't have a chance, a fair chance, to explore Cape Tech and get an idea of what we offer. That really upsets me. Not because of the money, but the to need and rely on a vocational education because that's the way they're wired, are being embargoed by the sending districts. But what Peter said is the absolute truth. When you start raising the cost of vocational education up to this $30,000, 20 plus the 10, and that works out for many of the districts, there is going to be some, not because of what Peter's advocating, but there's people in the local governments that are going to start talking about it. One of the most important things that you need to know is the state initiative of career pathways. Dartmouth High School, 2 miles from Greater New Bedford, just got a $500,000 grant to open up a vocational program in technology. Marlborough High School, 1 mile from Assabet Valley, got $384,000 to open up introductory vocational career pathways. If these state initiatives grow and become more successful, vocational education in this state as we know it is changing. And that is going to hurt, and it's in our minutes from the August 24th meeting that this is a big concern at Cape Tech.
Bob Sanborn, really fast though.
I pass.
You pass, you don't have to.
I will.
So Bob, I'm not sure I got an answer from you as I go over to someone who wants to ask a question. I asked you, if this fails, will you come back to us voters, yes or no, and do this again?
We would come back to the voters because that's the only way. Now, would it be the same project? I don't know.
It'd probably be less money.
No, because construction,
Yes.
no, because the inflation rate, hold on, no, that is not true. No.
It's the same thing that happened in Hyannis with the fire.
Pat, you just made a statement, I need to come to that
They had to come back 3 or
statement.
4 times.
Pat, you
Each time
just
they
made a
raised the
statement.
price.
Wait a minute, I'd like to comment on that.
Go right ahead.
You know, I think that's...
I'm just
one of-
sparring a little bit.
Yeah, well, clearly you are.
You're the
Moderating sparring.
You're the moderator.
Please, the reality is, we have to meet the state MSBA programming guidelines as we design these renovation projects. If we don't participate at the level that's appropriate, we'll probably lose funding from the state. And then what are we going to do? We're going to go it alone, do the renovations alone, where the towns have to pay 100% of these renovation or new construction costs. And you talk about delay. What's the cost of delay? Inflation and construction costs are increasing 5 to 6% per year. So my answer to you is we spend more money later.
That was the only
But it's not ridiculous you come back a second time and you come in on a lower price.
How long later? And what's the cost of
That's a
inflation?
good point. Questions?
Yeah, I got a
Aaron
question.
wants to kill me. Go ahead.
I actually don't have a question for the board, I have a question for you. Are you voting yes or no on the tech?
I voted in the town of Barnstable.
Yes.
I voted no for the funding. I probably will vote yes for this.
Okay.
Okay. Over here. Everyone over here. You're listening to WXCK. We are broadcasting live, and we're taking questions from our in-house audience. Good evening.
Good evening. Ever since there was a partnership formed by the schools, I guess, the school districts, with this MSBA group, we've been in a parallel universe. But all this discussion, these figures that are being bandied about absolutely have no relationship to reality whatsoever. An engineer recently told me that at half the price that's being quoted, $128 million, the price would still be too high. So, I mean, the MSBA, this partnership has driven us into a netherworld. I mean, really, it's ridiculous that you would think that a school for 650 students would cost $140 million. Just think about it. Wrap your brain around that. This, I mean, we have the Monomoy School, which was built 4 years ago, and it's got the fieldstone facade faux that it may be, which makes it look like a Taj Mahal, for the same number of students at $65 million, if I remember correctly. Suddenly, it's twice that in 4 years. There probably is, somebody will say there's going to be an extra cost for the shops, but not twice. Certainly not twice. This is really, we have to get back to basics and to reality. Because the reason that this cost skyrocketed like that, I think, is the MSBA looked at this consortium of 12 towns and said, oh, gee, well, we divvy it up 12 ways. I mean, the sky's the limit, and that's exactly what happened. Anyway, besides the so-called, oh dear, prevailing wage, which is a stupid phrase, totally stupid phrase. How would you try to justify the cost that you're proposing for this?
Okay. Comments from the panel? Cleon Turner.
Thank you. Comparing this school to Monomoy is like comparing apples and oranges. Monomoy is not a technical school. It does not need those shops and so on, and they do cost money. When you talk about building square footage, the size of the shops are significant in square footage, and they're necessary. Monomoy was actually put out to bid more than 4 years ago. It was significantly longer ago than that, and the cost per square foot then was significantly less than the cost per square foot now. So it's really apples and oranges when you're talking about those kinds of costs.
Buck Upson.
So I'm from Chatham and was living there when we went through the Monomoy situation. And in fact, for the people here, it was my hope that Monomoy Regional and Cape Tech could join together and we could have one school, a comprehensive school. But that was a little too complicated and too, we'll say, ahead of my time. The important thing to understand about Monomoy is, and I just went on their website today for the high school, and I went through every single course that they offer. They offer over 210 courses. I don't believe Cape Tech offers 210 courses. They offer 4 foreign languages. They offer AP courses, 23 of them I think it was. They offer honors courses. They have a lot bigger offering, so they have more classrooms. It is 168,000 square feet versus our 228. They built that for 700 kids, design capacity, that funny little term. And in fact, that school will hold 775 students. They only have 480 9th to 12th graders there. The MSBA said that Chatham and Harwich had to build a school for 700 for their high school. 480 versus a design capacity maximum of 780. MSBA did no favors to the town of Chatham and Harwich.
Okay. Anyone else on the panel want to respond to that lady? No? All right, let's ask another question
Well,
from the
I'm
audience.
sorry.
Everybody?
Okay, I would. I'd like to say one thing about
Sure,
it.
sure.
We're comparing a project, the Cape Cod Tech project, to the Monomoy project. Now, the Monomoy opened in 2014, which means it probably was under construction in 2011 or 2010, which means it was designed for a bid estimate in probably 2008 or 2009. What happened in 2008 and 2009? Our economy was in a shambles, and the public bidding process was much more competitive. I don't need to tell you this, but the unemployment rate in Massachusetts is 3.8% or something. And we're at full economy. These contractors, we're operating in a competitive environment. And you can't compare this project to a project that happened at one of the worst economic environments that this country has faced since the Great Depression.
Andrew Gottlieb.
2 things. Charlie's right on this. We are, Scott, you can laugh if you want. We just are doing a school renovation in Mashpee. We're paying a premium right now because contractors, it costs them a lot to come down here. Projects of this sort are not suitable for locally based contractors. So you're paying a lot in mobilization, and the economy in the metropolitan Boston area is booming, and construction is. So Charlie's right, he's correct about that. I'm going to admonish you, Pat, though. I think that if you're going to vote for this school next Tuesday, you need to be willing to vote for the debt exclusion to pay for it.
Wrong. I am in a town that has a $200 million operating budget. The counterparts were a bloated budget. They could have darn well found the cuts lazy, and they didn't do it. But this is not the forum for that, Andrew. Let's go to another question.
We'll pick it up another time.
We shall. I'm sure we will. Good evening, sir.
One of the things that wasn't brought up tonight is when you partner with the MSBA, they dictate to you what you have to build for a school square footage. You have to have a certain size classroom, and you have to have a certain area per square foot per student. So, and they were partnered with us every step of the way. When we did the renovations and everything, they reviewed it, and they were in agreement with what we came up with.
So the 650 that I was referencing earlier, no choice, we had to build 650.
That was what was recommended by the state.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, Bob Sanborn.
I just wanted to say that, to Andrew's point about debt exclusion, there are 2 towns, Pat, for your listeners, there are 2 other towns having a debt exclusion on the same day, and they should know that, and that's in Eastham and Orleans. You had already mentioned Harwich, I believe.
I didn't know that.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Great. Anything else from the panel? All right, can't wait to hear what you have to say. Good evening.
Thank you, Patrick. We talk about renovation or new construction. If we look at Falmouth, they had a 3-year, it was 3 years overdue, and it was $19 million over budget. If we want to do that, we can go ahead and do that, but MSBA is going to give us the ability to have some contingency dollars in there, and it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to have a $128 million bill. We might find a better bid. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Response from anyone on the panel?
I think those are the types of things the school building committee and the team looked at, just that Scott just mentioned.
Anyone else in this? Okay. You're listening to WXTK. We are almost out of time, by the way. We only have a few minutes left. Hi.
Hi, Pat. How are you? Very good. I just wanted to, first of all, I've been an assistant superintendent or superintendent of schools for over 25 years in the city in 3 different towns in Massachusetts. And I want to just clarify a few points. One is about the enrollment. Mr. Upson said that the architect said the school could hold 700 and some odd students even though the enrollment projection was for 650. He's correct. And the reason that is true is because if you ask the architect how many kids can you shoehorn in, they will say that number. So when you look at enrollment, this is probably for 15 to 18 students in a classroom. If you want 25 to 28 in a classroom, yes, you can fit 700 and some odd students. But I don't think anybody wants that many students in a classroom. I also wanted to mention about the repairs that are needed, and I think this has already come up before, but it's all about modernizing the curriculum. You know, when Cape Tech first opened, the job of the auto tech teacher was to teach the kids how to remove and replace spark plugs. Now they need to learn how to use technology for all of the analysis of what's wrong and right with the car. And then lastly, Peter mentioned that because of the debt service, the cost at Cape Cod Tech will be another $9,000 per student compared to DY. In his comparison, I doubt if he included the per pupil cost in DY. That also included the debt service piece for DY, and he should have added that to have a fair comparison.
My numbers, the numbers I used were actual total dollars currently spent this year for DY versus Cape Cod Tech. Every dollar for every reason what we're spending came from that town accountant from those numbers. It is still more than $9,000 per student for this. If we take the additions that is cited by the Cape Cod Regional Technical School for the 67 kids that we have, it totals $1,241,000 per year. And that is substantial. One other thing was made some reference about the economy being high. We do know that for the current school building that we had the projection, this is using Cape Cod Tech numbers. In 2012, there were 668 enrolled students at Cape Cod Tech. We heard tonight it's down to 593. That's a loss of 75 students. Now, I understand from the new building that we're building is larger than the one we now have. It's going to be larger for fewer kids. I don't understand that. And also, just finally, the equality of education is by the administration and teachers, not shiny walls, boards, and floors and ceilings. I just feel that way.
Anybody else on that? Go right ahead, Buck.
So my concern is we've heard a lot of anecdotal opinions from the other side saying that we think the population is steady, it's stopped, it's okay. The fact of the matter is we're at 593. I want to know what facts, not opinions, what facts do they have to support that the population of teenagers on the Lower Cape is going to remain stable or increase in the next 15 years?
I would point you directly to our website and look at the NESDEC study and look at the MSBA study. Buck, you already recounted the many things that are happening in the sending districts. We are analyzing that drop from the last year because it was substantial, and it was substantial in one area, one district. We will be analyzing that and upping our marketing efforts for that reason. So I would point to those studies, and both those studies show the drop was in the early 2000s, and that it's about 1,100 eighth graders are available through 2025. Now, I am not on this dais saying I know how many kids are going to be there in 40 years. if this building gets built. And nobody else can say that at this stage. But I say it again, in the 90s there was a boom, there was a big drop in the 2000s. Nobody, I don't know the people who predicted those either. So we're talking about a 40 to 50 year time frame. You want to analyze this but day to day.
One last thing, Buck, go ahead.
So in January of this year, I sent Superintendent Sanborn a request to have a discussion from the Cape Cod Commission, the Chief Economic Development, Leslie Richardson. She was prepared to come to the school and discuss the population projections the Cape Cod Commission had for young teenagers or teenagers on Cape Cod. This was because their report, their numbers, you've all seen it in the newspaper, it's been reported in Cape Cod Times just last week. For the next 3 to 4, 5 years, it's going to drop 1 to 2%. Even Julian Sear has said publicly in the last 6 months that the population of young teenagers or teenagers is going to drop another 1% a year. So I'm wondering where the facts are and why didn't we have the opportunity, the school committee, to have Leslie Richardson come and discuss what they thought the projections were. Now, do we not believe the Cape Cod Commission? Do they not know anything about teenagers on the Cape?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, that's for the voters to decide, but I guess this room has already figured it out.
We're going to let this very, and I'll get to you next, but let this very nice lady who's been very patient ask her question. Hi.
My question is, they talk about this brick building like it's at Harvard or even the ones that are old in Barnstable. But this was built in the 1970s. Is it actually a true brick and mortar building?
Well, just a brief history on the brick. It has been porous. I look back at school committee minutes in the 1980s. It's been drinking water. We've attempted to remedy it over those years with our operating budget. But it's been drinking in water since probably the early 70s, quite frankly. Behind that brick is backer board that is asbestos-containing material. That is one of the many things that is driving up the cost of renovation. Now, I ask you, with new versus rehab, and I'm not quite sure on the other side whether there is another option. I haven't heard another option. I heard one person say that they say no to rehab and new. But that's what drove up the cost. One of the big things that drove up the cost was that the entire skin of the building would have to be rehabbed. And it's not because of poor maintenance practices. As a matter of fact, when I took you on a tour of our facility, Mr. McDowell, you commented on, and many times when I've come to your committee, and you have commented on the way we keep that building up. We've also been commented on our financial transparency. More than once today you said we furnished Cape Cod numbers. This has been a transparent process that's been over 5 years in the making. And the first time we're hearing these things in the last several months.
Get an answer to your question? Kind of, sort of? Yeah, I know. When I say that to them, they get mad at me. Do you want to ask it again? I don't care.
Is any building that was built in the 1970s built the way that we built buildings in the 1930s for longevity? Do we ever expect something that we built in the 1970s to last the same way? Because it's not the same construction. Just like it didn't work for Barnstable Middle School or Barnstable High School when they had their incredibly costly renovations.
Anyone want to tackle it? Don't have to. Sitting there in silence, though, probably isn't cool. Okay, let's move on. Hi, how are you?
Good. Bill Fisher, former superintendent of Cape Cod Tech. I couldn't let Mr. Upson's statement a little while ago about comparing Monomoy's courses to Cape Cod Tech. It surprises me that Mr. Upton, having spent so much time in vocational education, doesn't understand that there's a huge difference between the courses that are offered in a comprehensive high school and the courses that have to be offered in a school that only has 50% of its time to devote to academics. The other 50%, Buck, they are in show. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much, Bill. I think the point I was trying to make was they have a lot more classrooms than Cape Tech. A shop doesn't usually have a lot of walls. Most of the shops at Cape Tech are in the area of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 square feet per shop, as mandated by DESI, not MSBA, to the speaker in the back of the room. But Monomoy has more classrooms, and that drives cost up because it has more walls versus the shop area.
And no equipment.
But
it's apples and oranges when you compare a comprehensive high school to a technical school. And in answer to Mr. McDowell's question about why is the new facility bigger, it's because the old facility did not, and still to this day does not, comply with the state's requirements of square footage for shops and classrooms.
If I might, sir, I understand and I believe it is a common belief that the quality of education of the young people going to that school clearly has not been impaired by not following those state standards you say that we do not meet. My belief is that the educators and the administration of the school can teach kids probably regardless of what the walls, boards, and ceilings are. And if I may...
Do you not believe in following regulations of the state of Massachusetts?
I served in the Massachusetts legislature long enough to know, sir, that I can tell you I don't believe everything that I hear coming out of the voices of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts individuals.
And this gentleman has a question, sir.
Lou Colombo, I'm a retired teacher and a retired administrator from Cape Cod Tech. I did 9 years in facility management at DY. I'm also a master plumber and gas fitter. A couple of comments that I want to make. A question to Mr. Sanborn. If we lose the MSBA funding and we decide to go forward with major renovations over a 5 or 6 year period to the existing school, do we get any money from MSBA, number one?
Not if we go on our own. We would have to start from scratch, a new educational plan, and re-engage our architect and owners project.
Okay. One other point I want to make in regards to renovation, and you referred to the Simpkin School, and I worked at the Simpkin School and was in charge of the maintenance there. And one of the reasons we sold that school, along with the declining population, is because the square footage mandate on the size of an elementary classroom is 1,200 square feet currently. Some of those classrooms were 700 square feet. We have the same problem at DY. Same problem at Cape Cod Tech. So if you want to renovate that space and you want to renovate a classroom, if you're going to go into new construction and you're going to pull permits and do that, you better be making them according to what the state is mandating for square footage in the classrooms as well as in the shop areas. So if you have 12 classrooms on the second floor, you may end up with 6, and we're already too small in those classrooms. That's my point.
If I may.
Peter.
We have done renovation at the Ezra Baker School, and I can tell you that the quality of education is not suffering from not applying to those standards.
And this young lady has a question.
Hi, Bronwyn Walsh from the Barnstable Patriot. I wanted to ask Mr. Sanborn in what way students' opportunities would change if the school construction is approved. Will they be offered different programming than what was dictated by your current building?
Well, we went through a process of looking at all 17 of our programs before, entering into the feasibility study, and we looked at all 17, and we reduced by 2. All those 15 programs that we're putting into the new facility enjoy double-digit job growth. In my tour, I've talked about the Northeastern study. There's 1.2 million jobs in the state of Massachusetts in the programs we train students in. And in that same report from Northeastern University from Barry Bluestone, it says that the Cape and Islands has an acute need for service industry jobs that we train students in. So we are going to be tweaking a couple of our programs. We see our health tech programming moving more into medical assisting, and we also see our graphic communications transitioning into design and visual communications. And we also want to integrate academics and technical programming significantly more than it is today. They're both two distinct, different areas of the current building, and to help the students continue to see the relevancy of their academic learning on their technical side. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities for more project-based learning going forward. And that was true in both new and rehab. Thank you.
All right, one last question. You're going to be nice, right?
No, it's not really a question. It's, again, I just want to go back. When you pick up with somebody like, or an entity like MSBA, you are already looking for trouble. They dictate everything, and when they give you figures to use, such as is included in this architect's rendering here, project cost $128 million, reimbursement rate 45%, effective reimbursement rate 32%. When they start doing scams like that, you just know you haven't picked up with the right group.
Okay. Anyone have a very, very fast comment about what the lady just said?
I can quickly, Pat.
Go ahead.
There are many ineligible costs on an MSBA project. She is correct. The effective rate is significantly lower than the published rate.
Okay. We're out of time. So I'm sorry about that because I have more questions, but you guys did a great job. I appreciate it a whole lot. So rather than, because of time, I can't let all of them make closings. So I picked two and they both agreed to it. And Bob Sanborn's going to make about a 2-minute closing, and Andrew Gottlieb is going to make about a 2-minute closing. Andrew Gottlieb.
So nothing's free. And I guess the question for you to take back and think about is, after this project is done, the cost per student for this educational experience will exceed some amount in excess of $30,000 per year per kid. It's not that the educational experience isn't worthwhile. It's not that the educational experience doesn't meet the needs of the kids. It does not the educational experience doesn't meet the job needs of the region. But we have to have some type of conversation about what we can afford as a community and where our priorities are going to lie. And I will have my argument with Pat perhaps another time. But I urge you, those of you that have the passion that brought you here tonight in support of the school, when in your town, as the majority of them do, schedule a vote at a subsequent time to pay for this. I suggest that you show up and you support that as well, because otherwise, I'm not going to comment on Barnstone's budget. I know from my own that taking this cost out of our other municipal operations comes at a price that's important to somebody else, whether it's the conventional educational program, whether it's senior services, police and fire, water quality. I don't know where it would be. So I would urge people, when you think about this, think about it from the whole town perspective and think about what you can afford and what you want for your community. And I would encourage us all, as has been a learning experience for me as well, pay more attention to what goes on both at your local boards of selectmen, your local school committees, and this regional school committee, because it has a huge impact on each one of us. And I think unless you're a family that's engaged in the school community right now, no one else is paying very much attention.
Thank you, Andrew Gottlieb. Good job. Robert Sanborn with a closing comment.
Andrew's brought up the point a couple times about per pupil expenditure, although it's not a discussion for tonight. We are, as an administration, looking at that. That is an issue we need to work on. But tacking on the cost of this project, after 45 years working within our operating budget, never, ever coming back to a select board for additional money for capital, and keeping the facility up to the best of our ability, I think is noteworthy. This has been a 5-year journey, as I've stated already. I want to thank some people. I want to thank the members of my 25-member school building committee, my 24-member school committee, the 12 select boards and 12 finance committees that I've had the opportunity to present to along the way. I want to thank my staff, my administrators, especially my business manager, Aaron Orcutt, for their work and support. To the many citizens, volunteers, and advisory committee members that have helped along the way, I want to say thank you. The school building committee voted unanimously for a new Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. Town representatives and officials have overwhelmingly supported and endorsed this project. The need for the training we provide is undeniable from all 6 of us. Upon graduation, our students stay on Cape Cod, they work on Cape Cod at a living wage, buy homes on Cape Cod, and raise families on Cape Cod. Cape Cod Tech is a workforce development and an economic development solution. It should be no surprise that I advocate for the yes vote on October 24th. The polls open from 12 to 8 to ensure the future of vocational technical education in our district from Provincetown to Mashpee. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you, and thanks to all of you in our audience here and our WXTK listening audience for joining us. I'm Pat Tismaris, Kevin Matthews, the producer of this program this evening. And again, thanks to our sponsor, Cape Cod 5. Incredible job, and we appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.